Yay. Thank you all so much for joining me today, September the 8th. Oh my goodness. Exciting times. And thank you all so much for joining me the last time, which was 2 weeks ago, when I was in Colorado and you guys got to meet my little grandson, the apple of my eye, who is just so precious and is helping me really get not only what the course is teaching us, that we are magnificent. We were created to experience life, liberty, and happiness. That is our purpose. And the truth is the truth is the truth. So whether we get it from the US Constitution, we get it from Sufi teachings, we get it from the Hindu Vedas, we get it from Buddhism or A Course in Miracles, or even Christianity, the truth is the truth is the truth. Every one of us, if we are alive, we have the energy of life force inside of us. It's what propelled us into this journey. If we have life in us, it's because we chose to freely extend it and express it. And if you are expressing the life that is your authentic self, you cannot help but be happy. So when we understand life, liberty, and happiness, they go together because they are one, then you begin to really understand who you are. A magnificent creator, the essence of God itself, that chose to enter into a temporary illusion through no fault of yours, because you entered into a world that was already stuck in the illusion for a very long time. You became deluded. Not only are you deluded in that you dilute your sense of self, you dilute your idea of your power. You think you only have tiny little bit of power. Remember when you were little, you thought you were invincible. I am sure it will not be long before my little grandson Ryder is going to think he can leap off of, the upper bunk on his bunk beds, that he can take a bike and go flying through a ramp when, his dad builds bike trails and they have massive ramps. So he will probably, at the age of 2, 3, once you put him on a bike, he's going to think he can do what Evel Knievel was able to do. Because it is natural inside of us to be adventurous, to be creative, and to be free. We get deluded. We are deluded. Our thoughts, our process, our magnificence gets diluted in the delusion of this illusion of separation. So the good news is that none of that leaves us. It's all inside of us. To the degree that we tap into it is to the degree that we are distanced from the truth of who we are, deluded, or aligned with the truth of who we are and completely in our power. So we're just moving up and down a scale. This is why it's called ascension. We came in and descended. We wake up, we look at the levels of consciousness, we look at what's not true, what we've been programmed with, and we choose, does this program serve me or not? If it serves you, you stay there. Nobody makes you stay where you are in consciousness. You stay by your choice to believe that that is your truth. When you choose to expand your awareness beyond that, you go to another level of consciousness. What that means is you look at it from a different perspective. That's why the Course in Miracles is a course in mind training us to experience a miracle when we shift our perception. When you give yourself permission to see things a little more like God sees it, you have a miracle. You free yourself. And from here to here is freedom. Trust me, I've been here a lot. To there, it's freedom. To there, it's more freedom, more freedom, more freedom, more freedom. You got to think about this as a scale, like percentages. 100% you are in your truth. You begin the process of descension, like my little grandson. He's at 95% his truth because he doesn't have programming yet. He hasn't retained information about who he is and what he's supposed to do, but he's picking up information that the people who take care of him are a finite set of people. So he's beginning to get indoctrinated that his safety is out here with only a certain group of people. Then it's going to increase little by little. He's going to descend. So he will go from 95% alignment with the truth of who he is, because there's no interference with thoughts that are opposite to that. Eventually, he'll be at 80% of his truth, 20% he'll be believing his name is Ryder. You know, he's the son of these two people, and this is where he lives, and this is what he can and cannot do, the rights and the wrongs. Eventually, he's going to get schooled. The system is going to get a hold of him, because that's the way that it happens on the planet of duality. We come here to get schooled into what we're not, and then you become 50% authentic, 50% programmed, and then you keep descending to where you're 60% programmed, 40% authentic, 70% programmed. And if you're operating in powerlessness, if you're in evilness, you're 95% programmed, maybe 5% still connected to your truth. If you're alive, you have the essence of God in you. You cannot not have that ability, which is what the Course in Miracles calls the voice for God in you. The Holy Spirit is that inside of you that will call you back to the truth of who we are. Because if you have life, you have love. Love, life, it's all the same thing. Anyhow, I'm super excited that you guys are here, because we're going to continue with what we started last time this is lesson 153, which is a powerful lesson in my defenselessness, my safety lies. We need to understand the power of not defending what you are. God doesn't defend who he is. My little grandson doesn't have to defend who he is. We all know what he is because he is being that. He doesn't have interference with thoughts in his mind. But when we begin to forget the truth of who we are, we begin to defend ourselves. But here's the thing. All defending is of what we're not. It's of our weaknesses. So that's why we have to understand why remembering who you are and standing grounded and don't defend who you are is where safety lies. So before we get started with that, I want to hear from some of you. How have you been? Because we didn't meet last week, so I've missed you guys. 2 weeks without you is a long time for me. So just unmute yourselves and please share, how are you doing? How are you applying Course in Miracles in your life the last 2 weeks? Miss Rebecca, let's go to you. Oh, there you go.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, Course in Miracles is definitely helping me in my life. I started a new job.
Congratulations.
That I love. It's very much in line with who I am and my journey and all of that. It's a beautiful space, which is amazing. Also in working with my kids. I kind of had a quick question about what you were talking about. As a parent, I want to protect my kids from falling all the way down, but it's like, I feel like on some level, like I can't, like, so is my job as a parent just to continue to remind them of who they really are, even though, I mean, I can't prevent all pain. I can't prevent all indoctrination. I have to teach them how to behave, I have to, like, I can't just let them like run amok completely, So I don't know. That's kind of what I'm struggling with, I guess.
Well, great question. And congratulations on the new job, because when we talked to you not too long ago, you were struggling about leaving the old job. So that's beautiful that you must have aligned with receiving whatever was in your highest good. So thank you. Thank you for that. And congratulations. So with the children, first of all, the most important thing that you must do if you want to embody the teachings of A Course in Miracles is see yourself and them as equal. All of us are the presence of God. Nobody is better, higher, lower than anybody else. The only thing that makes us different, which is what Jesus tells us, is the only thing that makes us different to him, is how much we trust the truth of who we are. He trusts 100% that he is non-physical, so he doesn't need a body. We still trust that we're physical, so we still have to experience the body. So that's the only difference is, how much of the truth are you embodying? So we're all the same. We're all powerful, non-physical beings having a human experience. Your work as a conscious parent is to remind them of that and guide them through a world that is going to test them. So your work is to really ask questions. Why would you want to do that? Why do you think that's a good idea? Why would you want to hit your sister, with a pot? Oh, because it's fun. Well, how would you like it if you get hit with a pot? Instead of, no, don't do that. Don't hit your sister. Because that is training them into beliefs of right and wrong. And we want to move out of right and wrong, and we want to move into what feels in alignment with love, because love does not judge right or wrong. Now, those who have fallen into a real deep slumber and they're operating way down here, there is a system of right and wrong. We are going to operate in looking at rights and wrongs, because here we have a legal system, we have a justice or injustice system, depending on how you want to look at it, that is still correcting right and wrong, because here we are operating with a pendulum that swings from right to wrong. But when they're here, they don't have right and wrong. They need to have what is in alignment with love, what is kind, what feels good. And that's what you want to activate in them, a sense from the get-go of what feels good to them, because then they can do unto others as they would like to do unto themselves. So you hit the sister with a pot. How would you like it? How would it feel to you if you got hit with a pot? Oh, that would hurt a lot. Then why would you want to do unto somebody else if you wouldn't like that done unto you? Then you begin to align them with their inner compass. So as they descend into the world and they begin to hear people talk about right and wrong, then you remind them, you want to do what feels right in you. Some people are going to call what feels right in you wrong. That's why you don't want to get caught up with right and wrong, because there's going to be polar opposites to the same thing. We're witnessing it right now in a world of duality, where one group says it's right to control a woman's body, and another group says it's wrong to control a woman's body. So who's right? You can't determine right and wrong when the ego gets involved, but you can activate an inner moral compass that is aligned with love, with gentleness, with kindness, with certainty, so that they do not deviate from what feels right. When it is set from a pure state in childhood, then it remains as something that is really solid, that stays solidly ingrained inside of who they are. That means that they will be very difficult to manipulate into doing wrong things, in terms of unhealthy things, bad things, because they will have a very solid inner compass. Your work is to ask a lot of questions. Why did you do that? Well, what do you think about doing it this way? So that you plant the seed of critical thinking, you plant the seed of questioning, of curiosity. Because if we teach them by controlling them, they're going to turn into little controlling tyrants, or they will become victims of controlling tyrants, because those frequencies attract each other. When you're certain of who you are, you cannot be controlled if you are deeply connected with a sense of self that your parents taught you is okay for you to align with. But it has to come with love and kindness, because we have to understand that we wouldn't want to do unto another what we wouldn't want them doing unto us. That allows us to love our neighbors and respect their differences, and not get into a pissing contest of who's right and who's wrong. Tell me, Rebecca, does that help or make sense? Or
Yeah. I think it's just like anything else, I would say with my kids, it's like 90%. I feel like we do that. And then, a 3-year-old who gets tired and can't regulate themselves. It's like, the tantrums and things like that. It's like I'm watching her struggle with her own self is what it looks like for me. And I'm like, man, I do that, like
Yeah.
it's like I can see her actually struggling between, right now this feels good to hit you because I'm in the pain body and I want you to share my pain. And it's like, most of the time, yes, my kids are very loving and they help each other and they work together. But then you get into that, I'm tired, I'm sleepy, I'm hungry.
Mhm. That's because they're making the body real. And at that age, they don't really understand anything different. That's where you get to come in and plant the seeds of truth. And after that episode, when they're in the episode, do whatever you can to keep them from harming others and themselves. Not because what they're doing is wrong, but because they're feeling, they need to experience. Go ahead and cry it out. It's okay to have your tantrum. You're just going to do it here on this chair instead of over here where you can break the glass window or whatever that might be. And as soon as the episode is over with, sit with her or him, whichever child it is, and talk to them about what happened and begin to let them know you have two voices. Which voice were you listening to that made you angry? Well, the hungry voice. Okay, so you were hungry. So if you're hungry, what are other ways that you can take care of that hunger? And of course, as a parent, you'll talk to them age appropriate because they are experiencing those two voices, the voice of the ego and the voice of God. They need to learn which voice allows you to get what you want in a peaceful way, which voice makes you, crabby or whatever word they like to use. And as you share this with them, make it super, super clear. If you want, with my kids, I used to have, we basically, I used to use my flip chart with my little kids and I would tell them, are you here or are you here? And which voice are you listening to? Get little magnets and say, okay, this is your happy voice and this is your crabby voice. Which voice were you listening to? And get them to identify that there is always one effect when you listen to the voice for God, and there is a very different effect, which is opposite when you listen to the voice for ego. And just let them know that if they go crabby and they become, a pain in the butt, that you're not going to judge them. Tell them, it's okay. You just don't know that you can shift. And of course, my kids heard me say you can shift and lift into the higher, a higher state where you're more joyful. But always, always, always tell them you're choosing what you're experiencing. Mommy doesn't make you feel mad. Mommy doesn't make you feel good. You have those voices inside of you. And that's where you want to begin to get them to get clear about those two voices. And the best teacher for them is you giving them examples of your two voices. When you lose your patience, oh my goodness, mommy I just went down. I got angry. I forgot that I could choose the voice of being nice to you. So that in that moment, they see, oh, if mommy does it too, so can I. Because words don't really teach, but our examples do, because our examples carry a frequency. Words carry a frequency, but when words come from a deceptive person, they have a low frequency. You can say the highest truths, but they come with a low frequency. So you want to, through your example, because your example aligned with the voice that you prefer to be speaking with and from, you will actually be an example that puts out a frequency that entrains them into that field. You want to help them raise their consciousness, because what's happening at a very young age. How old is your daughter? You said 3?
She'll be 4 in October.
Oh, okay. So she's clearly in the pride stage. So once we pass 2, we go into the, it's me. I do it all by myself. The pride stage and the demand and all of that happens. So your work, you can't keep her from having an ego, Your work is to help her know the distinction between the voice of the ego and the voice of God, the Holy Spirit, and use the words that make sense. Use whatever feels comfortable and appropriate. And then as they get older, you shift that voice, because you're going to want to talk from, you don't want to ask an 18-year-old, oh, honey, are you coming from your crabby voice? My 18-year-old, 20-year-old, 25-year-old now, it's like, all right, are you coming from your ego? Are you getting all selfish on me? So you're doing a beautiful job just asking these questions. So thank you so much for that, sister. I hope that helps you.
It does. It does. It's a journey, and I get to model it and learn it with them.
Exactly.
Be patient, forgiving, and gentle to myself too.
And that's a really important point. So when that activates a reaction in you, go to the age that they were and forgive that part of you. You're going to forgive two things. Forgive that part of you that didn't know different, and forgive your parents for not teaching you different. They could only teach you from the level of consciousness they were. And if they were in a lower frequency, which I'm sure they were, you were born and you came down higher than they are. So now your children are born and they came higher than you. You will be able to shift and lift even higher than where they are by you forgiving your parents, because the forgiving of your parents of what they did not teach you is like it cuts the anchor that holds us in low frequency, because now, not judging, not blaming them, we don't have somebody that gets permission to be the reason why we're, messed up. Mm-hmm. Once there's nobody to blame for being messed up, you cut the cords and you can rise. It's like the hot air balloon can rise because you're not anchored in deception, which is what the ego loves to do. And as you notice, oh my goodness, my daughter at 4, 5, 6, 7 just threw a tantrum. That reminds me when I was 4, 5, 6, 7. Mm-hmm. I can see why I had a tantrum, because I didn't have a conscious parent. I forgive myself for not knowing back then what to do. And I forgive mom because she didn't know either. That releases you, because your daughter is here to be a mirror of who you were as a child, so that you can see what needs healing. And that's how we help each other ascend. Yeah. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much for that, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Who else? How are you guys doing? Please unmute yourself if you want to share. I'd love to hear from you. Everybody doing okay? Well then.
I'll share.
Thank you, Dr. Vern.
Yeah, I have been spending a lot of time reviewing all the circumstances that we're having the opportunity to learn from. Some of them are pretty powerful. And after doing all that work and looking at all of them, I decided I would take a look and see where are the areas I could focus on as far as action steps I could take. And as I looked at each one of them, I came up with a list of a lot of different things I could get involved with. And every one of them, there were pros and cons involved with it. And most of them had to do with, there's two major sides always. And watching the challenges that occur between people that have opposite viewpoints, that are not willing to learn from each other. What it is, it gets very, very frustrating. And I've seen enough of that interaction now, especially over the last couple of weeks, because I've become more cognizant of it, more aware of seeing the fighting that's going on. And it's getting worse and worse. It's not getting better. It seems to be getting more extreme from both sides. And so what I decided to do, and I've been leaning this way anyway, because I think I've told you guys before, in the last 60 days, I've done a lot of research into the country, how it was created, how it was formed, going back and looking at history in a really deep way, and identifying a lot of things that I thought I was clear on, but I wasn't. But as I went deeper and deeper, I realized where I was at, and that I wanted to look at, if I was going to put my energy in a particular place, where would I put it at? And what I got very clear on is this: every one of those challenge areas can only be addressed and worked with if something stays in place. If there's a foundation in which to have all of this going on within. And if that foundation is ever taken away or changed in a dramatic way, then it doesn't make any difference about all these other areas we're fighting and arguing about. And as you know, I've been looking at the Constitution very, very deeply. And even looking at the way it was created and all of the dialogue that went into creating it. I got very clear, and that was very simple, that I was going to focus my action steps around the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Those were the two areas. And then, of course, as I went deeper into the Constitution with the Bill of Rights, the First and Second Amendments are the two areas. And I got very, very clear that without the First Amendment, freedom of speech, basically, the rest of it doesn't make any difference. Nobody will be able to even present their issues or their sides. So there'll be no chance for learning. There'll be no chance for a honest, open dialogue if we ever lose that. And of course, then the Second Amendment is basically, that's what allows us to maintain and guarantee the first. So I got very clear that those were what I wanted to focus on. So I decided, how do I want to approach this? Do I want to approach it by going out and basically creating chaos around it, or do I want to come from a different viewpoint? So what I did is I've gotten these. I don't know if you can see this or not.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a 50-page booklet of the Constitution, of the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, everything. Incomplete. Everything is in there in that one little pamphlet, about 50 pages. And starting this weekend, I'm going to start handing these out to everybody I know. And that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to say, I would really invite you to take a few minutes and just read this over. That's all I want you to do. That's all I'm asking you to do. I don't care, take positions on anything you want to. I don't care, but at least take a look at this. So I'm starting out this Saturday, the Unity Men's Group, that Saturday morning. There's normally about 30 people there. By the way, I'm also bringing a little miniature United States flag and a little miniature POW flag, which I'm going to have in front of me at the breakfast table, because they had an issue with me putting a flag in the middle of the table. So I'm going to do that. I'm not going to say a word about it. They're just going to be planted there. And when it's my turn to share, I'm just going to pass these around and hand them out to everybody that's there. I'm also going to do it at the Course in Miracles Sunday morning, the class at Unity, and basically to do the same thing. And I believe I'm going to be able to do this next Sunday, not just coming Sunday, because I'm going to do that this Saturday and Sunday. The following Sunday, I'm going to hand one of these out to every person that leaves the Unity building after the Sunday service. Now, if I get in trouble for it, if I get in trouble for handing out free copies of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, if they get an issue on that, it doesn't make any difference.
Mm-hmm.
If they'll fight that, then it doesn't make any difference. So I'm very clear. That's what. So this is a way for me to put my money where my mouth is, basically, to put my energy where I think it will add the greatest value over all the areas we're discussing. And then I will know when I put my head in the pillow at night that I am taking positive action in a way that allows me to feel congruent within myself. So that's what came to me. So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you, brother, for following your inner guidance and honing in on what your purpose is right now and how you can be in service. And to do it that way, you're doing it defenselessly, which is where your safety is going to come from, because we can have no attachments. Everybody is a child of God expressing and experiencing what they want to express and experience. But here's something, when I got really deep into the Course in Miracles and I began to realize, oh, we are all one. That means that there are, wherever you are on your path, there is somebody who is just below you or a couple of steps below you. And below you, I don't mean as in hierarchy, but in consciousness. The journey to awaken is really, it's a beautiful spiral. We come down and we spiral into a small sense of self. The journey is to walk up the spiral of consciousness by expanding our awareness. So if you happen to be here and somebody happens to be here, you hand them that booklet without defending yourself, they can hear it because they're not being attacked. And it may very well be the thing that helps them shift and lift into another perspective, expand their awareness. And they're not going to come here. They're going to go here and here and here. You know, it's a long way around that spiral of awakening. So thank you for following how you're here to serve, and that you're doing it in such a loving way. At some point, we see where vibrationally speaking, our frequencies don't match, and then we just accept it. If we keep going to a place that has a lower frequency, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that station playing that kind of music. You are just in, a jazz musician inside of a country club, and they like country music. If you can go in and just enjoy the music, good for you. If you prefer to be with jazz musicians, then we go there. And that's so beautiful. Thank you so much for that. All right, so I want to share a couple of quick announcements, and I so appreciate you and Rebecca sharing. So tomorrow night, Thursday night, is the class that I'm teaching. It's a live class, so you have to come in person, called Ego Basics. And I am going to share according to A Course in Miracles, how the ego begins to get created. And that is it's a prerequisite for my one-day workshop class. If you are coming to the workshop that is going to be on September 25th, which is the in-depth explanation of the ego, but you cannot come to tomorrow night, then make sure you get with me, because I am recording tomorrow night's class, not on Zoom. I'm having it professionally recorded, because I'm going to offer that as a class, as a recorded course on my Ascension Academy. So you'll be able to watch it before you come to class. And it's only $20. So just know, tomorrow night is and I know some of you are coming to that, the basics class, really breaking down, like you would to a child, what the ego is all about. Because from my own personal experience, as an adult, it is very difficult to understand the ego. So we have to look at it like you would as a child, how it begins. And so it's going to be very, very basic, but it is the platform on which you can begin to understand what the ego is all about, because most people can talk about ego, but don't see their ego until they begin to really practice the characteristics of a teacher of God. That means you have to learn what defenselessness is all about. It is one of those characteristics, along with tolerance, along with gentleness and patience, that teach you how to see the ego. Anyhow, and then next Tuesday, we will go back to our every second and fourth Tuesday, we're going to do a live gathering. And that's more of a community who's coming together in support of each other for the deepening of the teachings of the Course, and how do we apply things in our lives in a more more community based. And Dr. Vern, I need to get together with you, because yes, I will do that one live in Zoom, because I had quite a few people in Zoom last time that wanted to come via Zoom. But we're still going to do the live, because some of us, as you said, Dr. V, let's do it both and. So that's really exciting. And then one more announcement. I am going to, I'm switching over the company that does my newsletters, because I have the ability to do a lot more in this particular system than just send you an email. I'm also going to send out an email that if you want to, give me your phone number, and of course we got to do it through there. I can't do it just because I have your phone number, because you have to give permission. I'm going to send out what I'm calling a Monday miracle moment. And that is just a short little snippet Monday morning from A Course in Miracles to set the mood for how your week is going to move forward. Because dropping truth as often as possible, just a quick little, you know, and on our phone, it's quick and easy to see. I want to empower as many people to remember the truth of who we are. And in these times, because what we're doing is we are going through a bifurcation. Those who are going to move into the truth of who they are going to be splitting from those who live in fear. These are the ones with faith that respect freedom of choice, all choice. You got to respect all choice. Those who are operating in fear and control, we are going to be seeing a rift between us. And it's not a bad thing. It is simply an acknowledgement of where we are in consciousness, because just as we are expanding individually, the planet is doing her thing as well. And by vibration, by frequency, we are going to begin to separate. And if you believe in things like timelines and other things like that, if you've expanded to accept that there's a lot more going on that happens at the universal level, not just the human physical level, we have to divide, we have to separate, because the wheat is being separated from the chaff. The oil is separating from the water. Those who want to live in freedom do not want to live in control. Those who want to live in control don't want to be with people who want freedom. So we have to move into, and I don't know how that's going to show up, but it's going to show up in a very obvious way. And for that to happen, people are going to have to begin to see the effects of operating in freedom. That means those who have had freedom to choose certain things lately are going to see the effect of that freedom. Those who have been operating from fear are going to see the effects of what making choices from freedom has created in their lives. And that is going to show up at this time. The bulk of that is going to show up through the choices that have to do with the COVID story, the vaccines and things like that. So we are being separated. Not, again, it's not a bad thing. We have to separate, because we're a point in creation where those who want to live their lives from a higher frequency and get their lessons through love, through like what I would like for Rebecca to do with her children, teach them through love, want to continue to do so and not learn their lessons through pain. Those who need to learn their lessons through fear and pain are at a point in consciousness where they need to have their space to continue their lessons, because nobody can teach anybody or give them their lesson for them. Everybody has to get their lessons. And as we are separating into frequency, that has to happen, which is all the more reason for why we need to ground ourselves in this particular lesson. Lesson 153. If somebody could write this in the comments, in the chat section, lesson 153. The title is "In My Defenselessness, My Safety Lies." As we saw earlier, I'm just going to read a couple of highlights in the first couple of 4 paragraphs. The world provides no safety, none whatsoever. The world that the ego runs provides no safety. Authorities outside of us, and if we don't do what they say, they're going to punish us. Rights and wrongs, rewards and punishments. There's no safety there, because it is rooted in attack. And all its gifts of seeming safety are illusory deceptions. Do what I want you to do and you'll be safe always comes with a trap. Every single time you rely in the outer world for somebody to keep you safe, you can be certain that it's going to cost you something. You may have to pay them because they're your security company. You may have to pay them because they're the mafia and they're protecting your business. You may have to pay them because you gotta work out a deal, through court, whatever, you gotta pay a fine. There is always a cost. For many, participating in the world of medicine for profit, there is a cost. And the cost, as we are learning more clearly, the cost is with our health. We're paying a price. So you're letting go of your health. You let go of your freedom. Everything that the ego does to provide safety comes at a cost. So the world gives rise but to defensiveness. We're trying to protect ourselves and defend ourselves. All right. In the fourth paragraph, which was the last one that I read before, I just want to read one line, the first line. Defenses are the costliest of all the prices which the ego would exact. The ego is absolutely determined to ruin our lives because the ego has only one way that it can go. The ego only goes to total and complete evil. That's the only place it can go. And into evil, it goes into total and complete denial of love, denial of life. So that means it goes into taking us to death. Now, the ego doesn't realize this because it's very stupid. That's one of the things when you begin to pay attention to what the ego does, it is absolutely insane. It marches everybody into total and complete control because it wants everybody to be as miserable as it is. Nobody who is happy wants to control anybody. Happy people are free expressing themselves. Hurt people hurt others. Happy people just want to find people to be happy with. So being defensive is a very important part of the lesson in understanding, are you listening to the voice of ego? Are you listening to the voice for God? Because when you know the truth of who you are, you're an eternal being and nothing in this world can affect you. It really can't. Then you find your voice as a child of God, as a being that is here totally in complete freedom, a sovereign being expressing itself however you want to express itself. And when you find that freedom inside of you, you will have zero fear about anything that's happening outside of you. That's why paying attention to our reactions is a way for us to understand where we're being defensive. Why am I defending this? Why am I protecting this? Why am I attacking that one? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Because it is coming from a place that you're not grounded in the truth of who you are. That's why it's so important to understand what defensiveness is all about. So let's start with paragraph number 5. Talking about defensiveness here. You are its slave, the ego. And when you're defending yourself, you have become a slave. You know not what you do in fear of it. You do not understand how much you have been made to sacrifice, who feel its iron grip upon your heart. Every time you need to defend yourself, you are literally coming from a place that you're trying to convince somebody else that your truth should be validated. If you know your truth, you don't need anybody's validation, but you seek for validation outside of yourself. And this goes back to what I was sharing with Rebecca. If you don't find your inner compass at a young age and you come to know what is true for you and you are grounded in it so you don't have to defend it, you will always be at the mercy of something outside of you moving, and it is going to pull you and tug you because you will need to wrestle it down to convince it of why you're right. When you come to find the truth of who you are, your safety comes from you staying right there in the middle of it. And the world right now is pulling us. The financial system is pulling us. The medical system is pulling us. The political system. We are being pulled. People's jobs are being put in jeopardy. Their long careers, their financial stability, soon the loss of their homes. If you don't have money coming in, you're going to lose your homes. There is a lot that is coming to test Where are these people? Now, every one of them can choose to shift and move into the higher frequency and begin the process of correction, begin the process of remembering, getting out of the spiral and moving out and expanding your perception of why it is that the world is as it is. And again, that's what I want to share in the basics class. So again, even if you can't come, you'll be able to get that video later on, because it's so important that we understand the way the ego gets created. There is a reason for it. And the clearer you are about who you are, the more you see it's a child's game. It really, truly is. But as we get all adult, we make it very difficult. We make it really serious, and it's not. It really isn't. It's truly a game. But while you think it's serious, you become enslaved by it, because that's what the ego does. It enslaves us in a small idea of who we are. Sentence number 4 says, you do not realize what you have done to sabotage the holy peace of God by your defensiveness. If you are not aligned with God and you understand why you're here, what your purpose is, and what's going on in the game, if you don't know the rules of the game, you don't trust that God has your back. And that's why it's so important that we understand how the ego gets created, because the ego is a block to God. And where's God? In you. So how can God have abandoned you when you are God expressing itself, forgetting that? So we have to get to the place that we understand we've got these two identities inside of us, and one is going to enslave and cause us suffering, but we are the ones who are doing that. We are the ones who are doing that, and we are the ones who have to free ourselves from the pendulum swinging, the yo-yo going, the seesaw, stop the madness, and get back to a place that we find our peace, the peace of God inside of us, because that's the peace that passes all understanding. Sentence number 5 says, for you, behold, the Son of God is but a victim to attack by fantasies, by dreams, and by illusions he has made, yet helpless in their presence, needful only of defense by still more fantasies and dreams by which illusions of his fantasy comfort him. A little example about that. As I'm watching, the parents who are really struggling with what's going on in the school system. So first of all, the school system is an illusion that they have knowledge to impart to our children. So we have all bought in, because we got indoctrinated into believing that our children go somewhere to get educated. So we bought into that. I know I did, because my parents, that's what they taught me. So I bought into that, and I sent my children to the box where they go get educated, not realizing that when we believe that their education comes from there, we give that authority. So what is happening right now is that the education system that got hold of the kids, has indoctrinated them, is indoctrinating them because we gave them permission. We said, yeah, big box, you tell our kids what they can and cannot do. Most of us had no clue what our children were learning. We really didn't. And we have to get really honest about that. Our children have been indoctrinated in things that are not true about our Constitution, about God, about who we are. They have been programmed systematically. This is why we have to expand our awareness to how did we get into this craziness. We have to understand the rules of the game. And so we are upset now that we are learning about critical race theory that the school did that. So we are going to the school and saying, you can't do that to our kids. Now I want you to see the insanity of that, because that's what this is saying. We are attempting to correct the dream inside of the dream. When we are battling the dream in the dream, we are always coming from our ego, and we have to get really clear about that. When you pull out of the dream And now you have awareness of the way the game is played. You can now see what's going on, and you're not attempting to get those people to change their minds. You are literally getting clear about the truth, and you're correcting for you and your children. What that means, and a lot of parents are having a hard time with this, is you don't send your children to somebody else to educate them. You take that back, because this is how we're going to create the new earth. We find those who love to teach, who in the system, they don't like being a teacher in the box. They want to participate in teaching from a love of life, liberty, and happiness. So we have to become open to possibilities and find where are these other players that we can create something new. The ego is always going to have us attempt to change what is insane. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't participate in going to school board meetings, that we can't speak up. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that if you are going to attempt to get somebody who believes that they have power over your children, if you think you're going to attempt to get them to stop thinking they have power over your children, you're sadly mistaken that it's going to happen overnight. That system has to be totally changed, which means those people's minds have to be totally corrected. They have to go on a journey and shift their thinking and begin to see what's crazy. And there are many people in the school system, many teachers, many nurses in the medical system, and doctors who are leaving the insanity of the establishments that the ego has created, and they are forming their own systems. So there is something that you can do, which is create the new. Don't keep battling the old. This is part of defenselessness. You don't go in there and attack what they're doing wrong. You attract those who are doing things at the frequency that you want to do them at. We have to be the change we want to see in the world. And there are lots of people that are already that have been creating the new. We just have to look at our beliefs, our fears of why we can't join them. Do we have fears around money? Do we have fears, well, I'm going to lose my job because I'm not going to take the job, or I'm not going to do this, that, or the other. How can I afford to put my child in that kind of a private school that might require more money? You got to get clear about your priorities. So you lose your job, you don't have money. Why don't you volunteer with that group and be part of the servant leaders in that group? There are all kinds of things that are possible because we are not used to working from our heart, bartering, trading, acknowledging needs for services. We're not used to talking about what we need. That looks like we're weak, or we don't want them to think that we don't have enough money. So many beliefs are coming to the surface for us to free ourselves from those limitations. That's what this is saying. We are a slave to a system, and you can't fix the system by battling the system that enslaved you. I hope that makes sense. If that makes sense, go ahead and put a note in the chat so that I know. If it's not making sense, let me know, because I want to hear about that too. So let me go to paragraph number 6. Defenselessness is strength. It testifies to recognition of the Christ in you. When you're clear, you know what? I am not going to take a job, so I lose my job. That's okay. Because you are trusting, you know what? I'm entitled to miracles. This is why all these lessons in the course go together. God, this is a lesson you would have me learn. I don't know what anything is for. I don't know what's going to come after I walk out of this job, but I know that it feels right in my soul. It feels accurate for me not to stay with a company that is wanting me to take something that I can feel is not good for me. So God, I'm expecting you to open the doors. This is why everybody who goes on this journey has to cultivate a really loving and playful relationship with God, because God is the infinite child, creative child with all the powers. God has all the powers, and you access those powers through your desire to accept the Christ in you. What is the Christ? Is the part of you that is God, is the essence of power in you. So you have to be willing to accept that God is working on your behalf, that through synchronicity, the right and perfect situations will unfold. This is not an easy thing to accept and to let ourselves enter into with total, complete joy and freely go into it going, oh yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to do it. Those who do, and I've seen some of you do it at times, you know, some things you do it, some things you don't. I was the same way. Until you get really clear, until you get really comfortable commanding the power of God in you, which wants to be commanded, by the way. God wants us to say, okay, this is what I want. This is where I'm going. Now, God, the way that we've been using God is pleading, oh, please give me this because I don't have it. That worked in a certain way in the old way, but in the new energies, God's not playing that way. God wants us to play from a place of wholeness. There's nothing missing in us. We're not getting stuff to make us somebody or make us happy. We are happy and want that to play with it. So our mind has to go through major correction, unplug from the matrix, which is the work of looking at our fears, our angers, our judgments, our attachments, our delusions. We have to look at that and begin to open up for how would life look if I was operating in totally aligned with my life, taking control of it 100%, taking responsibility for it, acknowledging my liberty, my freedom, my sovereignty, my free will to do whatever it is that I feel like doing that will make me happy. So we've got to create an inner dialogue with our inner child and find out what will make me happy. Do you realize that lots of people through the COVID adventure realized that they were not happy in jobs, even though they might have made 6 figures or more? They realized that they were not happy where they lived. They lost the house because they didn't have the money to pay for it. They realized that they were not happy in a relationship. They began to realize, oh my God, I'm doing so many things, but they don't add happiness. They let go of some of those things, or some of those things let go of them, all because the creative source is supporting those who are ascending. If you know you're being moved and you go, okay, God, what would you have me do? You will be guided to the next opportunity for your lesson. You don't have to look for it. It comes looking for you. Why? Because God wants to free itself in many of us who are ready to play at the level of 5th dimension, at the level of playing with fun and ease, not with struggle and dis-ease, which is the way the world has been operating from. So sentence number 3 says, perhaps you will recall that the text maintains, the Course in Miracles, maintains that choice is always made between Christ's strength and your own weakness, seen apart from him. We have got to cultivate a relationship with a voice that reminds us of how powerful we are, which we felt when we were children, but were not taught to connect with that voice as being a real voice and the voice that leads to happiness. So we have to see that we have always had a choice to listen between 2 voices, but we just did not know what each voice cost us. We did not know that following our bliss meant that we would do things that the world could call wrong, but they were in alignment for us. That's why I want us to move out of right and wrongs and into alignment. That's what matters: resonance, frequency, alignment. We learned to do the right thing. And for most of us, when we entered into the world of the ego, to do the thing that felt in alignment, we were told was wrong. So then we looked for the right thing, and that helped us do what this says in here, became a slave to the system. We were enslaved in money making. We were enslaved in debt accumulation. We were enslaved in what the Joneses think and do. We were enslaved in the mask that we wear, and do we look good, and who looks better than whom. And we got caught up in the superficial world and got so far out of our center that we became easily enslaved And when you are easily enslaved, of course, you're manipulatable. I don't know if that's a word. And that is what we are in the middle of the Great Awakening for those who want to step out of enslavement and step into total liberation. But to be free, you've got to accept that you made the choice for enslavement so that you use that same power to say no more. And that requires that inner journey of looking at, why did you sell your soul? We have to ask that question. Why did I sell my soul? We sell our soul because we were not raised to remember the truth of who we are. There's a whole system designed through the churches, through the education, through the government to make us believe that we're not the powerful beings that we are. They can't enslave powerful beings. That's why it says, defenselessness is your strength. Once you know who you are, it testifies to the recognition of the Christ in you. Now you realize that, wait a second, just like Jesus, just like Buddha, just like Gandhi, just like Martin Luther King Jr., I can do what I need to do here from a place of love, and I don't need to justify to you why that needs to be done. I'm doing it because it's what I have to do, because it is my job to be a model for you of one who has found the truth, not to beat you up over the head with it, but to show you what it is so that more of you will follow me. This is why Jesus said, I am the way, you are the way, I am the way, Lawana is the way, Dr. V is the way. And each of us is going to affect and inspire those that we're supposed to by a beautiful design that we don't need to understand. We just need to trust that we all get who we get to inspire that. And we'll read more about that in this lesson. Sentence 4, defenselessness can never be attacked because it recognizes strength so great, attack is folly, or a silly game a tired child might play when he becomes too sleepy to remember what he wants. So when Rebecca's children get ornery, they get tired, they get sleepy, they get hungry. Now they say hangry, hungry and angry. When we get to that place that the body takes over and we are only taking care of our physicalness, we become like a sleepy little child, tired, playing a game. The game that we're playing is, I need you to take care of me, and if you don't, I'm going to throw a tantrum. Well, are you watching some of the CEOs of these companies throwing tantrums, trying to get their voices to be heard and imposing their corrections? How many people are you seeing on the opposite side who are defenselessly putting truth out there? For example, the frontline doctors. That group of doctors, they're not out there trying to defend their position. They're sharing the truth that they know. And then there are the ones who are justifying, yes, you got to take this vaccine because this is, mandate, blah, 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 blah. Tired little children. And you know why they're tired? Because they're getting exhausted of playing the pretend game that they are smarter, that they are in charge, because watch what's going to be happening here very soon. Those who are moving through the time of awakening and are on the verge of potentially entering into the journey of awakening are beginning to hear their conscious get activated and realize that what they thought was right in this world, chasing the money, status, they're realizing it's a thing that is actually wrong in that frequency. It's a thing that is wrong for their ascension. So they're having a realization. Doctors were going, wait a second, I'm keeping people sick. I contributed to the death of that one because I didn't stand up for them and give them the medication that I knew would help them because I was afraid that I would lose my license. So we're beginning to see doctors who are saying, I don't care about my license, I'm going to do the right thing. We're beginning to see teachers who are saying, I don't care about my job and my pension, I'm going to do the right thing. We are going to see more and more of that because some are going to rise out of that frequency, and then the rest are going to turn on each other because the ego is, well, you can't count on it. You can't trust it. the ego is going to turn on each other because they're all fighting for position. And as long as they have everybody believing they have a hierarchy, they don't have to fight for position. But when we don't believe the hierarchy anymore, and they're all just a bunch of little children, greedy, selfish little children. And when you begin to look at these authorities as nothing more than souls, children, I mean, at the core, the Christ consciousness is a child pretending to have power. Once you take that belief off of them, that perception, you remove them from having authority over you, you begin to see who they are, you begin to see how they show up. What do you have to defend then? They're a tyrant little child wearing a costume of a grown-up. Then you know, wait a second, we're all the same. Oh, you're just a tired little kid. No wonder you're exhausted and you're screaming, because you're in the final stages of holding on to what God wants to end. There are many of us who have moved up here, so the bulk of God, the consciousness of God, has shifted, and it wants to play at a higher frequency, which means what is trailing, the few that are trailing, they're going to have no power because the bulk are going to be rising. So look at the defensiveness of those who are operating in the egoic realm as nothing more than playing a silly game a tired child might play. Paragraph number 7 says, defensiveness is weakness. It proclaims you have denied the Christ and come to fear his Father's anger. This is another thing that at some point we have to look at. When we are defensive, tap into what is it that you're afraid of. Somewhere in there, when the time is right, you'll discover it. You can't make it come up before you're ready, because you have to, you know, the awakening is like stepping stones. You have to build the foundation to get yourself to the place that you're comfortable with certain truths before the next layer of truths gets revealed. At some point in your journey, you're going to be solidly grounded in being able to face that our greatest fear, from the ego's perspective, our greatest fear is that we have usurped the power of God, that God's going to punish us, that God, being the ultimate parent, as we've been taught, is going to get really angry at us because we all have the Father knows best programming in our mind. We all have the dad's going to come after us with a switch or a belt or whatever. God's going to punish us, going to take our allowance away, is going to take the car away, is going to take something away. So deep down inside, the ego has us in defending ourselves so we don't face the fear behind the defensiveness that is directly related to that we're afraid God's going to find out that we had all this love and light to share with the planet, and we descended into darkness, sold our soul, and began to do really ugly things to our brothers and sisters. We all carry that fear inside of us. When you face it, you will know, you will know it's gone, because you will then in that moment come to really feel the unconditional love of God inside of you. That the Course says doesn't have to forgive you, because God, source, spirit, whatever you want to call it, is love, is unconditional love. There's no condition. So there's no forgiveness needed, because you didn't do anything that affects it. You just played a silly little game, and as a child pretending you were what you are not. So all of these corrections happen in a beautiful progression that takes however long it takes, but it is part of the journey of coming to the place of making peace with God. So what can save you now from your delusion of an angry God whose fearful image you believe you see at work in all the evils of the world? What but illusions could defend you now when it is but illusions that you fight? So this is why, we think that we're defending ourselves so the boss gives us doesn't get mad at us, doesn't fire us, or defending ourselves so that our partner doesn't leave us. Trying to rationalize with those who are caught up in their own defensiveness and their own fears. It's one illusion trying to go up against another illusion. You got to come inside, clear up your delusion, and then you will play in the illusion. Very much like Rebecca's doing. In the illusion of having separate children, she wants to play consciously. How can I empower them, knowing that we're all playing a game of separation? And we're here to play the game of separation. Until we actually go to the fifth dimension, we are playing in the separation, as the Course in Miracles calls it, to turn it into a happy dream, because we're dreaming that we're separate. And like Vern is doing, you find out what's the best way that I can be in service. And you will know in the illusion, in people who are operating, believing that there's separation, that there's fear, that there's a bad government, that there's a bad virus, and all those things out there that we're afraid of. You just drop information. You just drop that off. I do it offering this for whoever wants to pick up this information. You grab it. Nobody's told that they have to come to listen to A Course in Miracles. Nobody's going to be told that they have to read what is in the Constitution. Nobody is going to be made wrong for not following an example. And that is what helps us come into our center, because when we are no longer afraid of what's outside, it is because we have come inside and are cultivating a relationship with our inner self, are beginning to understand our emotions, are beginning to understand the movement of energy inside of us. We're beginning to understand who we really are. And we are awakening the soul, the spirit in us that is the Christ itself, that then begins to express and extend itself, where before it was covered up because we didn't know it was in there. And we blocked it with a mask, pretending to be what we're not. The next paragraph, number 8, and then we may just stop there. Paragraph number 8, we will not play such silly games today, for our true purpose is to save the world. And we would not exchange for foolishness the endless joy our function offers us. So when we know the joy that is ours, this is the frequency of joy, high frequency. When you know joy is yours, when you align with God, drop the masks, drop the pretenses, drop what's not true about you. Drop playing small, and you align with the truth of who you are. This is what's so beautiful. You are not going to want to exchange the insanity of the world and its fears and give up your joy. So we have to ground ourselves in our joy, get really clear, no, this is where we stay. Then you can help save the world. And you know how you save the world? By realizing, just like me, they are operating in delusion. I've been there, done that. I know what that feels like. Instead of attacking them, instead of telling them what they need to do to change, you can be in the world, but not of it. You can walk amongst them, but you won't get pulled into that frequency, just as Jesus did. You walk among them, just as Martin Luther King Jr. did. You walk among them, just as Gandhi did. No, British people, I'm not afraid of you. We deserve our country. You will be in the world, but not of it, because your frequency will be set here. That will be your internal set point. And then you can go anywhere, be with anybody, among the prostitutes, among the lepers, among the drunks, just as Jesus did, because what they believe is wrong with them cannot affect you, because you only see what's right with them. Because when you set yourself in the frequency of your truth, you can only see the truth in another. And when you see their truth, all you can have is compassion. Just like me, I used to be crazy like them. Just like me, I was totally in debt. Just like me, I was pretending to be what I was not. Just like me, I was in fear, I was suffering, I was judging. Once you can say that you've done that, been there, done that, I've done those horrendous things, including you begin to remember past lives. Oh my gosh, I was a witch burner. And oh yeah, I remember being a witch that got burned. Oh yeah, I played those sides. Once you realize that we all have the potential to drop down into evil just as much as anybody else does, then you begin to see, wow, yeah, I see the silly game that that child of God is playing. And once you see the silly game a child of God is playing, you don't try to make them stop doing what they're doing. You begin to be a model that shows them another way. Because when you become a model, you put off the frequency that the soul in them needs to feel. And that's the frequency of unconditional love. No, Fauci, I am not going to be judging you for what you've done. I am holding the truth of who you are as capable of waking up. So when I see Mr. Fauci, doing his shenanigans and lying to the people, I just send that little dude love, because he is just a silly little child playing a game that is going to have a big consequence. So here's the other part to that. The game that he is playing is necessary to wake up more of our brothers and sisters, because if he didn't play the game of creating the AIDS virus and this virus and that, I mean, the guy is like a crazy little doctor in a laboratory. Just talk about insanity. How many people can I kill? How many horrible things can I do to people in the name of medicine? Can you imagine how warped that mind is? The disconnect from the heart that dude is experiencing? So he needs my love, not my judgment, because inside he is full of fear. You can't go around thinking you have established yourself in such a highfalutin position, making all this money, and not be seeing what's happening and seeing they're coming after me with the pitchforks. That sweet little fella is in a lot of fear. I cannot feel that love that is true to me and experience my inner joy, my Christ itself, if I go down there to tell him how horrible he is, because then I would feel my ego self. I don't like feeling my ego self now that I know my joy self is my birthright. So you stay here and you begin to see what's going on out there, and you meet them where they are, knowing that your kindness, your compassion, your gentleness is what will activate the resonance in them for them to want their correction. Because when they feel not judged by one, they feel the love of the Father, Mother God, whatever you want to call it. This is why it says here, we will not, sentence or paragraph number 8, we will not play such childish games today, tit for tat. For our true purpose is to save the world, and we would not exchange for foolishness the endless joy our function offers us. We would not let our happiness slip by because a fragment of a senseless dream happened to cross our minds, and we mistook the figures in it for the Son of God, its tiny instant for eternity. This tiny instant that in eternity, Fauci is playing, this little wicked scientist. I am not going to lose my happiness and my joy to get righteous about him, because then I've got to play the right, wrong game. And as you heard me earlier say to Rebecca, there's no need to play the right, wrong game when you find your inner compass. So your inner compass allows you to stay grounded in peace, in happiness, in joy. From there, you come into the world, but not be of it, so that you can extend through your compassion the most delicious feeling energy that anybody in that realm will ever feel. There is nothing like somebody not judging you while you know what you're doing is not right, because it's created a lot of suffering. That level of compassion is to bring the Christ consciousness into the world. That's that inner child that says, come on, guys, let's play a game. but it's a game where everybody wins. It's a game where everybody plays in a joyful way. To play that game, we've got to stop the insane, childish game. We need to rejoin with our childlike sense of wonder, get curious, come to know the Father, Mother God, come inside, unplug from the matrix, get grounded, find your truth, stop defending yourself because you know who you are, you know you're eternal, you know you are love, you know you're pure creativity. And from that place, you come into the world and you express yourself, because the life that is in you is here, freely chosen to be here, to be happy. And nothing will make you happier than you tapping into the well of unconditional, eternal happiness that is in you, and then using that to save the world. And we're not going out there to save people that we think are doing something wrong. We are extending our compassion because it makes us happy. That's what makes us happy, because to judge makes us unhappy. It makes the ego happy, but it's a temporary happiness. So let me stop there. All right, let's unmute everybody. I want to hear from you. Please share anything that you got from this conversation, or any comments or questions. Yes, Laina.
I don't know. I have like my head's just woo. But it's interesting to see the awakening in the lower dimensions. So my question is, when everyone's going at each other, and there's the good versus the evil going on, that is the first step that a lot of us are taking, that's going to take us on up into the higher dimension. Is that correct? Because I see,
Yes.
you know, you've seen so much, and I get in it too. I get down in there and I get like, put my warrior hat on, and I'm like, oh,
I did too. Yeah.
because I'm just that's just me. And but then I can also feel the density of all that, going on, but I know it's necessary. So my question is, those people that are fighting the system, so to speak, that is the first steps that is occurring, that they are going to move on up into the higher realms of the ascension.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking that, I guess, is because I can get down into this so much with people, but I also want to help people to start to come on up.
Yeah.
So anyway, can you just
that's
share
a great
that?
question. Yes, yes. It's a great question. So we have had lots of opportunities, including the Holocaust, for us to see what was not okay, for 6 million people to lose their lives or more. But that wasn't big enough to awaken the whole planet. Plus, we needed social media, we needed internet to really understand more what was going on. So that was like building. It was like building to this point where now everybody has, nobody can claim ignorance anymore. Everybody has access to information. So yes, the stakes are high now for more of us to awaken. And because you know that there is a lower energy and a higher energy frequency. There's only one energy. It's either high vibe or low vibe. So you get to decide, like it says in here, to look past the dreams, the illusion of people's fears and righteousness, and begin to share with them how you got to a place where you can see what's going on. This is where we have to be clear. There's nobody that needs fixing. We have to be an example. And you can say, and I've said this to many people, including in my own family, and the answer was no. When I said, can I share my perspective? No. Okay, no. Yeah, we see you're crazy. We see what you post. We don't want to hear what you have to say. Because in our acceptance of where they are, they're going to remember somebody who didn't attack them. The world is filled with attack, and one who doesn't take it personal. Oh, you don't want my opinion? No big deal. We are beginning to be the examples of what is so unlike the frequency of discordance in the world. and in their fears and in the upsets and in the don't know what's going to happen. I might lose my job. They're going to mandate the vaccines by the end of the month. And I don't accept it. There's a lot of uncertainty. So if you, in your certainty, see that you want to stay in your happy place and you have something to share and you ask, do you want to hear? If they say no, if you respect them, you are literally becoming somebody that is unlike the norm that they will remember. And listen, on a regular basis, I'll get people who message me typically through Facebook, because that's where I have, a lot of people, but I don't know them all personally. And they'll reach out to me and say, the way that you responded with such kindness to this person who was so mean, blah, blah, blah. Tell me more about how you got there. What books do you recommend? Can I coach with you? I mean, I get messages like that all the time. So I know that being an example of kindness really stands out. We just need to not care about whether they get it or not, and trust that God will connect us with those who are ready when the time is right. This is a practice in gentleness. It's a practice in trusting. It's a practice in grounding yourself, in remembering that everybody has the presence of the creative source inside of them, and it will begin to awaken at the right and perfect time. Your job is to choose to be that awakened being all the time. So when you cannot be gentle, when you get into the fight, you see it, just forgive yourself. Oh my God, I forgive myself for having forgotten that I could have stayed at a higher frequency, but I dipped down. I can see how easy it is to do that. Now I can see why they have such a hard time getting out of it. And go to gratitude. I know I can shift out of it. Wow, how amazing what I've been able to do. I'm grateful. Go into gratitude for what you've done. God, use me. Let me be an instrument of your peace. God, what would you have me do? And believe me, you will find yourself in the right and perfect places to be that example. And I know you're already doing it. So it's just when you recognize that you are, give yourself credit. Give yourself credit. At the stage that you are in, you can't be feeding your spiritualized ego. You are in a humbleness. Oh, wow, I see how I was used to be an example. And own it. Because when you are clear how good it feels to be kind, you don't want to give it up. Why would you? Because to go mean feels yucky. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Laina. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Had quite a few people who had to leave. Well, if not, just unmute yourselves and let's wish each other a wonderful, magnificent day, going about being the presence of love and light on the planet. So please unmute yourself.
Laina, can you stay on with me after this?
Yes, I sure can.
Okay.
All right, everybody, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful time, and I will go ahead and turn up the recording. All right, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.